Coming to you from the all-new Live House in Hollywood, California.
Hello, this is Gordie. Join my dad, Alex Tumay, but first, here's her. Hey everybody, welcome to this week's episode of Pensado's Place. Our guest is the super talented, super amazing Alex Tumay. But first, we've got another contest for you. This time you get a chance to win an incredible set of reference speakers from our friends at Multimedia. They're called the MTMs, and they've put a lot of thought into this. We're going to do an ITL on them coming up really quickly. They tune the room. They do lots of different things. These things will absolutely rock your world. Now, we're going to have two pairs of winners each week. Somebody will win a pair of MTMs, and somebody else will win a pair of their little brothers called the micro monitors, the MMs. So you want to enter this contest and get your speakers right away. It's very easy to enter. All you have to do is go to this link you see below me, bit.ly/iLOUD Pensado. That's bit.ly/iLOUD Pensado. Enter your emails. We'll have 4 straight weeks of winners, 2 winners each week. Do not delay. You want to do that. And for more information, all you have to do is sign up at our newsletter. If you would, if you'd like, if you'd subscribe, and if you'd click notify, we would certainly appreciate it. Our man from Sweetwater, Mitch Gallagher, is fresh off vacation, has prepared a piece on pre-delay. So here's some sound advice from Sweetwater.
Hi, I'm Mitch Gallagher from Sweetwater. Welcome to Sound Advice. Today we're checking out what I feel is one of the most important parameters for reverb settings, and that's pre-delay. Now, pre-delay determines how long it takes between the dry signal and when you start to hear the actual reverb signal come in. This can have a great impact on not only the sound of the reverb, but also the sound of a track. Because it allows you to set that distance between the dry signal and the wet signal. It can really change the intelligibility of complex passages or vocals, and it can also be used as a special effect. Let's take a look at a couple of examples. To begin, I have a track with just some simple snare hits on it. We'll open up our reverb, which in this case is FabFilter's Pro R, and our pre-delay setting is down here at the bottom. I've got the pre-delay set to 0 milliseconds, which means that the onset of reverb will occur basically at the same time as you hear the dry signal. Now, as we bring pre-delay up, it'll delay when the onset of that reverb occurs. So I'll turn it way up, so we'll exaggerate the effect. But the subtleties of pre-delay occur when we work with that distance between the dry signal and the wet signal. So let's go back to 0. Let's bring up the pre-delay in small increments so we can hear the difference it makes when we delay that onset of the effect signal versus the dry signal. We'll begin at 0, and I'll move up in 25 millisecond increments. You can hear at about 75 milliseconds, we're starting to hear a little bit of separation now between our dry signal and our wet signal. Prior to that, the dry signal is still masking the onset of the reverb, but we're still hearing a slightly different tone as we change that pre-delay, even in small increments, because we're hearing the effect of the dry signal overlapping the reverb, whereas in this case, we're starting to get to the point where the onset of reverb is totally separate from the dry signal. At longer pre-delay settings, it almost sounds like we have a delay between the reverb and the dry signal that's pushing that reverb back. Now, this can be great if you're creating a rhythmic effect, or if you're trying to clear things up to allow the dry signal to speak more clearly. To demonstrate that, I've got a saxophone track here. Again, we'll start with the pre-delay set to 0 milliseconds. In this case, when we're looking at lower amounts of pre-delay, what it sounds like we're changing is the size of the room that we're in, because we're pushing that reverb back from our dry signal the way we'd hear it in a larger hall. Eventually we'll get to the point where there's separation, though, between the dry signal and the wet signal. With longer pre-delay settings, here we're at 150 milliseconds, it's almost again like we're adding a delay before that reverb comes on, and that has the effect of pushing the reverb back in the mix a bit. So we still have that big, lush, large-sounding room, but it's pushed back a little bit, and it helps with the clarity and the intelligibility of our dry track. If we turn the pre-delay up even further, we'll get a much more pronounced delay effect. Depending on the type of signal we're running into the reverb, this can give us the effect again of a long delay before the reverb hits, or the fact that we're in a very large room. By setting the pre-delay properly, you can maintain the dry signal while still adding all the ambience that you want within your mix without cluttering things up or making things muddy. Thanks for joining me for Sweetwater's Sound Advice. I'm Mitch Gallagher.
You've requested him for a year. We've played tag a number of times. He flew out, especially for this appearance. He's hot as fire, and what a great story. Please welcome to the desk our guest, Alex Tumay. Hey, man, welcome.
Alex,
After lots of misses, we finally connected the dots.
It's been a while.
Yeah. Well, you know, one of the most critical questions amongst many is, how is Gordie? Is he with you? And how's he doing?
He's here in the audience. He's tired from, doing all the mix preps and all the assistant work.
Gotcha. But there's a point to Gordie that I think has a lot to do with your mindset currently after this kind of curve of success. Part of what you have to have in order to manage this level of success is organization and balance.
Yeah.
Is that correct? Talk about that a bit.
I mean, I think when I first moved to New York is when I got him. Mm-hmm. And I had no sense of structure to my life. And it was kind of, when you're a freelance engineer, you don't have to be up at any time. Mm-hmm. You don't have to go to sleep at any time. You don't have to eat any 3 meals a day. You can eat 1 meal whenever you get a chance. And you can wake up and do all your mixes, and it could be 5 a.m. and you're like, oh no, I have to get out of this apartment or this house or this studio. And it was starting to wear on me, And I got to the point where I was like, what do I do? And I've always wanted a dog. And I was like, it's not going to get in the way. I could bring him anywhere. He could travel with me. And I just tweeted, does anybody have any puppies right now? And somebody's like, my cousin does. And I just linked up with her, and, a few weeks later had a dog. And, since then it's been you gotta get up in the morning, you gotta walk the dog.
Yeah, he doesn't care about your mix schedule.
Oh yeah, he doesn't care at all.
He's gotta go to the bathroom, he's gotta eat, he's gotta...
Do you take him to the studio with you often?
I used to take him more. I think the late nights get to him and he gets grumpy. And he'll kind of start barking at clients at night. And I was like, okay, maybe it's time to leave him home. But if it's a day session, I don't mind.
Yeah, you didn't have to add liability insurance.
Yeah.
But I think the point to our audience is that, if you don't create structure, it can own you and start to affect your creativity in negative ways, as well as your life.
Well, yeah, and if you don't leave the apartment, there's, especially with Seamless and all the food ordering stuff, I would maybe leave the house every other day, And I had just moved to New York. And I was like, oh, I need to get out.
Something needs to change.
Why am I living here if it's not to experience the city, And just getting him kind of brought me out. It's the dungeon of sorts.
In the early years, there's, the history from Full Sail where you learned some stuff, but then sort of went on your own path, to the Atlanta years, interning, getting connected to people like Young Thug and Metro Boomin and, 808 Mafia, a bunch of incredible, not only producers and stuff, but also other engineers and mixers and studios. How did those years shape you? Did they create an Alex Tumay signature? Was it all relationships? Was it both?
I mean, I think specifically the DARP years, where I had to kind of figure it out. We took out everything out of the studios, made it fully digital. It was very bare bones, you know, it was just like one vocal chain in each room and a Pro Tools rig, you know, and like the mains were still in there and the NS10s, and you still had the great monitoring, and the room sounded amazing. So like we were able to get what we wanted out of them, but it wasn't I think right before I moved in, the console caught on fire, and they just had to like move it out because it was just
Some people might not know what DARP is. So for those of you that don't, it's Dallas Austin's studio. Dallas Austin is one of the great, in fact, in my opinion, one of the top 5 producers to have ever lived in Atlanta, and DARP was his studio. And it was a cool studio.
Yeah.
It had like graffiti on the walls. And
they had a graffiti artist come like custom paint the entirety of the lobby. And
I worked there quite a few times.
Oh, it's a great spot. It was a very creative, you know, environment. It's Future has it now.
Alvin was
Future
there.
spot.
Alvin was there a lot.
So the learning curve that happened to you, did it shape your ear? Did it shape your technique? What?
I think because it was so bare bones and it was all in the box, and the music was coming out when we finished the songs. It was such a special time in my career, because now I finish a song and it might be a year before anybody hears it, and I have to sit on my hands and like. Back then I would be uploading it. They'd be like, "I'll just put it on SoundCloud, whatever." And so that's a lot of pressure, you know. I had to record the song, mix the song, master the song, whatever,
and
in
upload it
that day that we recorded it, and it would go out. Or if I didn't upload it myself, I'd give it to them, and you know, nobody would come back, and then I'd hear it on you know, online on Dad Piff or something the next day.
It could be kind of argued, or maybe totally argued, that you were there for that kind of transition from Atlanta being just another place to being what it is now. That transition into trap mostly, and you were there early on with Future and a lot of the players that were shaping that sound.
I think that
Seth Firkins.
I think that the engineers kind of, you know, were along for the ride for that. You know, like me, Seth, Keisha was a huge part of that, and then all the other dudes recording at the time, because especially at DARP, me and Justin, who was my assistant there, who ended up doing a lot of the recording, we're just there 24/7, and everybody was there.
Did you feel something was changing?
We knew. I mean, that's why we stuck around. Like, you know, like it was a bunch of kids that really hadn't had a big song yet, other than maybe Metro, and then I know Southside and TM had a few big ones, like on Watch the Throne, like had just come out, I think around that time. So they had big placements, but nothing like of their own yet. And that was where they it all started for everybody.
Was Dallas still in and out, or he had already gone by then?
Anytime he came through, it was like an event, which was awesome. You know, it was cool to see, like, if he came through, all the old Atlanta people showed up. And it was like, it turned into a party where they made music, but all this,
like a
you know,
reunion almost.
It was like a class reunion for them, and it was cool to like just watch that.
Based on that vantage point and what you learned from it, where do you see things going in the hip hop world in the next, say, 5 years?
I think the major studios become less of a factor unless they're traveling. You know, when somebody's traveling, they need a studio they can rely on. They don't want to go to someone's house. They want to be safe, you know? So like, so when people come to New York, they like the major studios. When people come to LA, they love the major studios. But in Atlanta, the major studios seem to be kind of dropping off, and people are just building, you know, workspaces in their home that sound just good enough to get like a good vocal, which is really, you know, in the rap world, what you need. In the mixing world, it's a little different, but on the recording side, it's like, is the vocal clean? We're working with a 2-track beat to record anyway to start.
You see the music changing any? You think tempos are going to go up a little bit?
I mean, they've been going up from when I was living in Atlanta. It was like in the 60s, you know, and now it's in the like 70s, even up to the 80s. I mean, well, you know, 140s, 160s, but I don't know how much faster it would get than like, you know, the 160s.
Who's pioneering that speed change?
Pierre is doing a lot of it. Pierre and Playboy Cardi, like their up-tempo sound really drove a lot of the newer up-tempo stuff. you hear it on the new Thug album, Pierre produced a lot of it.
Oh, is that right?
And that's what it gives it a lot of the tempo.
Mm-hmm. How did DJing inform your craft? Is that...
I know what people react to a lot better now.
Yeah, I bet.
You know, when
Did that come from when you were out on the road with Thug doing it?
Well, I mean, I'm not a DJ.
Mm.
When we first started, the first time I ever DJ'd was at Lollapalooza.
The first one?
First ever.
So you believe in starting low?
Yeah. Yeah, 7,000 people or something like that. And I didn't have a laptop. I didn't know I was going to be DJing. I had just the hard drive with the show mixes of the songs. And just in case the DJ wasn't good, I had programmed drops in already because I know what he likes. So it just, just automated a bunch of drops and like had every song ready to go. And when he went on stage, he's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "I don't have my computer. What do you mean what I'm doing? There's got to be someone here that can DJ for you." And he's like, "No, you're doing it." So I took the Road Manager's laptop, which was the old 17-inch.
Oh, wow.
MacBook Pro. And it had all of his...
carry that thing.
Yeah. And it also was slow. And it also didn't have any DJ program.
Oh, my God.
So it was just on iTunes.
You hit the space bar.
And it had like a 10-second delay from hitting spacebar to the song stopping or starting.
Oh, my God.
What was your DJ
Sounds
name?
like our show computer.
Just Alex Tumay. Just Alex Tumay. There's nothing fancy about it.
We'll before the show ends, we'll come up with something, right, Herb?
Yeah. I think we should maybe call him Alex Tumay. That's pretty cool.
I was like, DJ, did I do that? Because I messed up a lot.
DJ, did I do that? That's hilarious. So in your work, do you think you have a signature? Do people hire you for an Alex Tumay signature? And what would that be?
I used to think I had a signature. I think the way that we were treating vocals, because they were a lot more effects heavy, I think, in 2014, 15, with the rodeo sound and days before rodeo sound and the Rich Gang sound. It was heavy auto-tune, a lot of effects on the vocals. They didn't sound very natural, and that's kind of gone away as far as being the sound of today. It's a lot more drier. There's some kids that are still, going heavy on the flanger and whatnot, but really it's not all over the place like it used to be.
Right.
And I think people used to reach out to me specifically for vocal mixing. And then that kind of went away. And now people are reaching out to me for how I mix beats in the low end and keep the 808 kind of in the forefront without kind of eating the rest of everything.
How do you do that?
Gain staging. It's literally I don't do anything special.
Come on, Alex, we're friends. That's a cop-out, man. You ain't telling me nothing.
I just give it all the space in the world and then just build around. I start with the 808 and then when you're mixing,
I'm being serious now, but when you're mixing, the first thing that you hear through the speakers is the 808 and then you build around it like that? Or
I would say
kind of early?
I'll mute everything but the drums and the vocals.
Oh, okay.
And then it's kick / 808, snare, vocal, which is how I learned when I started interning for Ben and he was doing rock. That's how he would start. But because the 808 is so much more important, I had to adjust it to that.
Are you saturating it any, or are you?
Saturation and distortion are a huge part of it, but it's mostly even just decapitator, just to give a little bit of distortion, just to kind of make it stand out, especially because people are listening on laptops.
It sounds sometimes like you're using the black box plugin on it. Are you using that?
I think that's what Seth told me about once.
Yeah.
Because he used to talk about that plugin.
Yeah.
But no, I haven't used,
Well, it strikes me that you don't let technology get in the way of what you're doing.
I just probably 2 years ago bought all my plugins and had them and really was I need to become legitimate. I bought a new laptop. I kept my old cracked plugin laptop with Pro Tools 10 on the side just in case Auto-Tune 5 came back up or something like that. And I was mostly just using Waves and Slate and the basics. And then recently I got the Acoustica plugins and Fab Filter, and I'm downloading Plugin Alliance right now because Doug's recording engineer uses a lot of Plugin Alliance stuff. So I want to make sure, because that's what a lot of it is now, is maintaining the integrity of the rough mix. And then
it's really an ongoing process, and it starts, and you get it, and then you take it to the next level.
Well, I used to have the ego where I would delete everything. I would delete every single plugin that wasn't auto-tune when I started.
Start over.
I think we all did that back in the day. Now you can't do that now.
No, you can't do it, and it's selfish. Really, at the end of the day, it's like you're making the song about you, and it's not your song. You're not the artist. You're just there to help.
But we shouldn't miss the point for the audience that Alex is talking about. With his success, 2 years ago, you started updating software.
Yeah.
3 weeks ago, you got an assistant.
Yeah.
So a lot of the process has just been you finding out how you do what you do and making it work without all these other things that people oftentimes in our audience think that they need to have to move forward. And that's just not the case.
I was thinking about the other day because somebody was asking me what they should upgrade in their system. And I think they had like an Apollo Twin and a laptop and,
You told them their ears.
Yeah. I was like, until someone is buying your music, don't upgrade.
Absolutely.
Because what you need to fix is what you're doing on your side, you know? Especially because like you can get the cracked version of everything while you're waiting, you know? Until you're making money, don't invest financially because you don't really need to right now.
And it doesn't guarantee that you're getting that investment back.
And it's a different world because I'm even from when I first graduated and like started investing, I bought like a 003 and some HS50s and a 414. And the 003s didn't sound good. In general, they just sounded kind of gray, you know? And I thought I was doing something wrong. And I thought I needed to buy new gear. And then I went to a studio with a 003, and that was all I had for a while, and just made it work. I was like, this has to work. It has to work.
It's the Avid interface, right?
Yeah, the old one.
Yeah, that's old.
Yeah, I'm talking about like 2010 when I first started. Like, but now like you have the Apollo Twin, which sounds amazing. Amazing. I mixed on that for most of my career. Like once I started to be on the road and I couldn't trust studios and I was like, I need to be able to work on the road. Just bring that. When I'm here working, it's the Apollo Twin into their system and I'm fine.
What headphones did you use?
The Audio Technica M50s.
Yeah, they're great.
That was actually a recommendation from my assistant at DART. And since then, I haven't changed anything.
Yeah, they're good.
I still listen to those. When you're on the road, what do you use to reference? Do you bring those speakers or do you just go in someplace and then?
NS10s are fine.
Gotcha.
And I mean, and Augsburg sound pretty much the same. In LA, they sound good. In New York, I don't like them.
Is that right? What would be the difference?
They're just sharp in New York.
Probably because I got used to the 813 Uris, which were...
But your regionality, I think, is interesting. So, born in New York, went to Florida, then Full Sail, then Atlanta, now back to New York. Does New York change your music sensibility? New York of today, from Atlanta to New York?
Well, part of the reason I moved to New York was I was trying to do things outside of music. Like I was working on like coming up with the podcast and the lectures and doing other things. And I wanted to be closer to the labels to, work on maybe consulting and do stuff like that. And that's why I moved to New York. And because I'm more of a New York person than an LA person, so it was one or the other. But one thing I noticed in New York is there's not the same environment of creativity that there is in Atlanta, where like the studios are not opening their doors to the young kids so that they can get in there and really build them. And then what you're doing is you're building a client base at the end of the day, but you're also helping people. You know what I mean? And that's kind of what I want to do with my spot, is open it for an affordable rate that these kids can get in and record. And I'll have my assistants trained up like in the exact way that I record, and like, big part of kids in there.
That's cool.
Big part of what
Very cool.
is admirable about what you do is there's a sense of the importance of giving back, but giving back in a way that speaks to where people live and is actual, as opposed to here, go to school and come out in debt or do whatever the case may be. The lecture series is about getting to some specificity and learning the way you need to learn. I think the podcast, something we know a lot about, is something that you're doing to try to give back and share information. That's part of the driving force.
Well, I mean, like the podcast for me was, I just saw a lot of like these tutorials online that are so definitive, like every time you need to do this, you have to do this.
Which is so not true.
That's not how it works. And so a lot of our podcast is just situational, like this is why we do this and this is how we approach it from like an engineer's thinking standpoint more than anything else. And like, I wouldn't even say it's something that will help define your sound. It's just something that might help you get to where you define your own sound, you know?
It's actually a disservice, I think, what we've learned after the number of years and 450 some odd episodes in all these countries, that you are doing a disservice to people to define for them specifically what they want to do. You want to say, here are options. Not only are these options available to you, you may find your own options, but be curious, push the envelope, find your own way. You have unlimited tools. Keep using your gut and your instincts and your ears. Don't get bound.
Well, and then there's like the template thing where people ask me all the time, what's your template? What's your vocal chain? How do you do this? And I'm like, doesn't matter.
Right.
And they think I'm protecting something.
Right.
So I did a video, a live stream video recently where I just showed my entire setup. I was like, here's how I do it from start to finish. And I was like, the plugins don't matter.
You put both pieces in there, right? You put both pieces in there.
Both plugins.
Yeah, both. All both. Love it. Fat filter, EQ, SSL
Slate
compressor.
1, Slate 2.
Yeah.
I just owed you one, so sorry about that.
And so I like went in there and I showed everybody, and a lot of people found it helpful. Actually, Kenny Beats, the producer, says that that's his vocal. That's like how he sets up his sessions. So it's from that, and that's how he actually recorded Thug, and that's how they got in together. Was he was around and Thug needed an engineer, and he's like, I'll do it. And they've made a bunch of songs together since, and that was one of the ways he got in.
You've had all these, an incredible series of highlights in your career. Was the Childish Gambino record, was that another step in the Grammy and all that kind of stuff? Or
I mean, more so than the Grammy was the experience of working with his team.
Is that right?
Like, they flew me out to Kauai for 3 weeks.
Starting out right.
And I was like,
okay, cool.
That doesn't happen for me.
Was there a studio there?
We built one in the house.
Even better.
And it was me and Riley, his main engineer, who does most of his recording. And most of the process was just chopping it up, me and him in the house, talking, everybody sharing ideas. A bunch of really good musicians, like DJ Dahi was there, and a bunch of good producers. Ludwig was there, and his whole band, and they were just creative, working towards a goal of making some really amazing music. And everybody was so nice, and there was no pressure of time. And
how nice.
I've just never.
Sounds like
I told him, I pulled everybody aside at least once, and I was like,
what's going on?
I was like, this is so foreign to me. Because I would wake up, whenever.
Right, exactly.
Some people would be working, sometimes they wouldn't be. We ordered a bunch of 703 foam and wrapped it ourselves outside and put it in one of the rooms and built a vocal booth.
How cool is that?
It was awesome.
Wow. And you were there for 3 weeks?
Yeah, and there's just whales jumping out. We had the window, and it's a full view of the North Shore of Kauai, and it's whales are jumping every day, and 8 rainbows. I got sick of rainbows. I was like,
that's what you know is paradise.
That should be a song.
Another rainbow. Yeah, another pot of gold. Damn.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna close the show with "I Got Sick of Rainbows." That should be a song title.
That should be a podcast.
Tell me about. I'm real curious about this, so don't let me down. Okay. Mike Dean's watching this, the Elton John Young Thug High.
Yeah.
That has the sample from Rocket Man in it. How'd that come about?
I think originally he had met Elton, and they had a long conversation where they chopped it up and shared ideologies or whatever. And Elton took a real liking to him as a person, as an artist, and really liked his music, liked his creativity. And then Thug did this pseudo cover, I believe, of Rocket Man at first. And then he got the sign off from Elton to go take Rocket Man and make his own song. And Stelios, the producer, got the sample from the A&R and made the beat, and then Thug recorded High, and then I got the song. I was like, this is something. And
you actually got raw Elton John vocals to listen
to? They still had the effects on them.
Gotcha.
Know?
But still.
But still.
Yeah.
I just I just listened to them. I was just that mix took me longer than others. I was like
over and over. Yeah.
What kind of effects did he have? Do you have any delays? You hear the reverb.
There's so much reverb.
Yeah,
and it's such a pretty reverb. You know,
it's one like a EMT 240 or
I was thinking. I thought maybe Lexicon at first, but
okay,
it might be
probably right
before the time. But yeah, it was just beautiful.
Right, that song is old.
Any interaction with Elton himself or no? Any interaction with Elton himself?
Unfortunately, not. He said he loved the mix, which I was like, "That's incredible."
Yeah, that's.
I mean, yeah, like that's something to freak out about.
And to remember and to grow on, as they say. You know, there's a certain point in time that in the arc of a career where you know when you're trying and you know when it's starting to work, you know when you're making a living, and you kind of know when you got some heat and there's an opportunity. And it strikes me that as you recognize that, as you've been there for a while, you're now trying to make that opportunity into things other than just more Alex Tumay, a set, right? Something that's lasting. And where does that drive come from? From what you learned growing up and what you think is missing for today's generation, or what?
I think a lot of my drive comes from wanting to be comfortable and not have that, like, in engineering, I'm always like, if I don't get a new job tomorrow, I'm screwed. I'm screwed.
Yeah.
And so I've been trying to, like, you know, build alternate streams that are still creative, because I don't want like a passive like rent. You know what I mean? I don't want to build a studio and just
be a landlord.
I didn't want that. I want to foster this kind of environment where we're doing other creative things and building together. And also, so it's not just like, oh, I better mix another album tomorrow, you know? And moving to New York didn't help with that, like, worry.
Yeah, if you wanted no pressure, New York's not the place to go to.
The overhead's a little bit crazier, but, you know.
Where's the studio in New York?
It's right next to the Empire State Building.
Oh, it's in Manhattan?
Yeah, it's in Midtown Manhattan.
Oh, cool.
That's it.
Cool.
The little single space blue unit, is that a Moog EQ?
Yeah, the mastering.
EQ4?
Yeah.
I love those.
Yeah. Actually, it's funny.
Is it the 4M?
Yeah.
I use that on every mix.
So I have the inward connection summing going into the Moog, and I still haven't even used it.
Oh, you got to use the Moog.
I know.
Be gentle with it, though, because it's a strong one. It's powerful.
Do you mix your own records all the time? Do you send records out to other mixers? Do you ever produce and sort of co-create and then say, I trust X with my
I've done
music?
co-mixing a lot lately, where you're working with multiple artists that don't trust, like the London was a co-mix. The London was me, Juro, and Cash, who are Juro's the Dreamville guy, and Cash is Travis's guy. And all of Travis's vocals go through Cash now, and all of J. Cole's vocals go through Juro, and then all of Thug's vocals go through me, and no one will budge on that, obviously. So I mixed a song, it was approved, and then J. Cole was like, I want to have my guy touch it. And I was like, oh yeah, totally. And I was like, and we were talking about this earlier, where I was like, I didn't want to get in the way. So I was like, I don't want to freeze everything or commit everything. And then then they can't undo it. And they because you want all the vocals to feel like they came from the same place. You don't want this mix, and this mix with all 2-track vocals and just an EQ to kind of make them cohesive. So, you know, I'm sure Juro did his thing after I was done. And
you
then
went first?
I went first. Yeah, I did the whole thing. And then Travis wanted to redo his vocals. So he went in and redid his. And then it went back to Juro, then back to me, then back to Juro.
Do you prefer to go first and try to set the bar? Or not really?
This is a weird, I mean, it was such a weird mix situation. I was just along for the ride on that one.
But as you do bigger and bigger artists, that situation may come up more and more.
Actually, Elton, who was just on the show, me and him are co-mixing some stuff.
Oh, cool.
Right now.
You liked Elton. He's a good dude.
Yeah, he's
talented too.
So good.
Yeah.
Like his vocal production on Smino I love Smino. He's one of my favorite artists.
He cares a lot about.
They did that in the complex my studio's in.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Man, he never slept. I swear,
believe
he
it.
never went home. I've never seen anything like that.
I'm over that part. I sleep.
Got to.
I'll fall asleep anywhere now.
Yeah.
I've developed like light narcolepsy. There's so many pictures of me sleeping in studios on everybody's. I'll fall asleep in the chair.
Oh, you should see me in a barbershop. I have pictures of me in a barbershop where I look like a corpse. Or I'm out and they're laying flat and and everybody's laughing and I wake up and look around and say, oh, that's me that's snoring. Because if you don't, it's not good for you.
Yeah.
You talked earlier about the future of music. For people that are out there, as they approach their career, do they need to move to a music scene? Do they need to just focus on music? What advice would you tell somebody as they prepare for their career in the audio game? Is it education? There's a lot of different choices for these folks out there.
I think interning should always be the first step. Mm-hmm. I mean,
in a commercial studio,
just for someone you respect, for someone that makes the music that you like and that you feel like it's like Ben Allen was that for me, and then Jason Kingsland, who's actually on the podcast that I do. Ben was the producer, Jason was the engineer, and I did that for almost 2.5 years, working under the two of them primarily. And I just sat in the back of the room with a pad, and I did the stuff where we had to do mix preps and mix recalls, and that was my job, and session prep, or setting up 40, 50 mics, something like that, because it's full bands. So I got the technical knowledge, but I also got to sit behind them and ask them the philosophical questions. And
if so important.
We lined up as far as like our thought processes. So when I asked him a question, it actually helped me. When I watched how he would EQ the guitars, I was like, oh, that's how I would have done it if I knew what the hell I was doing. That's what I was thinking, but he had a reason. And so all those questions kind of added up. And then when I left, I took that kind of to the rap world, and that helped me tremendously. And I was ready, I was ready to sit in the chair. I was ready to be thrown into the situation, whereas I don't think I would have been just straight out of school. And you have to be, because even if you're just an intern or just an assistant, say you skip the intern, your first job is always the day that the engineer doesn't show up or leaves early. Every
so
time.
True.
Absolutely.
Every time.
Absolutely.
And if you're not ready, the only way to get ready is by watching someone and sitting in the chair and, getting the training wheels kind of sessions, which you only get as an intern. Without that, it's a crapshoot. You might be good, you might stink, you might freak out. I've had interns cry in their first sessions.
Yeah.
Like,
for sure.
Herb says all the time, well, not all the time, but Herb says the soft skills are the most important, and I really think that's 100% true. The technical skills are given, but the soft skills, the way you interact with the clients, the way you give them confidence, the way you execute their wishes and stuff, is that you have to just watch somebody do it that's a pro.
When every client's different, so you have to foster the creativity in a way that kind of. I've had clients where the more you talk, the worse it goes.
Absolutely.
Let's put it that way. I've had clients where if you're quiet, you ruin the session. If you don't, reinforce that performance and tell them that they're doing a great job and that's the one, they're going to be like, oh, we need to do that again. And you might lose the right take. Whereas there's clients that if you talk, they're like, well, you've ruined it. Like, I'm out.
Yeah.
Me and Thug don't talk when we're recording.
Is that right? You just have your process where you go.
It's fast, but like, we'll talk after. He'll be like, what do you think? And we'll joke. You'll finish a song and it'll be like 2 hours of jokes and then it's another song, But during the process, it's not a lot of like, hey, why don't you try this?
Yeah, recently, and it sounds like, parental advice. I recently spoke to Ohio U students a couple days ago, and I was trying to get them to understand that, your ability to have context and read the room and read signals and so forth is not going to come out of your phone. You can't be the head down society and do that.
Yeah.
You have to be able to look at people and talk to people and pick up what works, what doesn't work. And not only pick it up, but be able to process it on the fly and make it an opportunity for you. And more importantly, don't make it a problem for the client. And you can only do that by engaging or knowing not to engage. And it's harder now to really understand that. A question for you that, our Instagram fans you have been on demand for a while, and we've missed each other a couple of times. You've been very flexible, and thank you for coming out for us.
Yeah, totally.
And Dave, you've had this thing, and I've been in this situation too. When you're in a situation where people trust you, do you find that sometimes they're leaning on you a little bit like an A&R person?
Oh, yeah. I mean, like, specifically with Thug, I picked his beats for 2 years. Like 2013, 2015, he'd be like, got any beats for me? You know, and I didn't want to disappoint. So I wouldn't just play all the beats I got. I would go through and be like, okay, these are great. These are amazing. These are like, this is how he's feeling today. Like based on the first two that I'd play, you know, you kind of have like a tree of like, if yes, then do this. If no, then do that. And I would have listened to 150 beats. And like, if he hates this one, I'm definitely not playing this one.
Right.
You know, but if he likes this one, then we go this way. If he hates this one, we go this way.
Right, absolutely.
And I had all the beats from all the great producers too. So, you know, all of them are great. We got to all of them, but it's just like, if I played the wrong one at the wrong time, it might've killed the entire session.
Another process that is a learned human interaction thing.
Yeah, we were like best friends at the time. We were around each other, I don't know, 100-something hours a week. I don't know who I'm around that often. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's a lot of time to spend with someone, you know, especially, and
maintain a good relationship.
Yeah.
That's you know? Hard to do.
It seems like what we're talking about is just old-fashioned trust, you know? If you can get and figure out a way, and sometimes it just takes time, and sometimes it just takes being quiet. When you get the trust of a client, that's when you can really, the creativity flows both ways in a real good way.
But I think that I agree with you, and I'm probably overemphasize this, but it's trust that is shot through the prism of communication. Like it's you know how
that's
we
the hardest
communicate
thing we have to do
is how we build how to roll, and it's something that I think this generation, they have a number of different ways of communicating. And if you communicate improperly, you may cut off your career before you even know it. And it's important that you know, I think it's important for us, since they look up to us, to emphasize what you need to do. And not because we're trying to tell them something they need to know. It's key to the success.
Yeah.
It's key to it's key to your creativity. It's not just, you know, like these are fundamentals that have never changed over the course of time. We've been doing what we've been doing. What is Pensado's place but a way to communicate the kind of lessons that you used to get in the studio? And if you can't get into a studio, you can get here. So if we don't give you truth and conversation and not just tech stuff, it's not going to really matter.
Well, I think that one thing I had when I was a head engineer at DART, 70-something interns.
Jesus.
It was a 4-room studio over 2.5 years. And, you know, people don't last more than a week or like the cutoff is a week. If they make it past the first week, they'll probably be there at least a month. And if they make it past the first month, they'll be at least 6 months, you know, usually. But most people get a day, you know, before they do something, before they stick their foot in their mouth or do something weird, and you know, you can't trust them now. I have some intern stories, but one thing I always err on the side of safety. Like, be quiet at first. Read the room. Absolutely. Understand what people react well to and what they don't. Because I've had interns that come in and they want to try so hard and they like try and get the lingo down and they're trying to act hard, and I'm just like, yo, that's not real. That's not you, and everybody can see it. And now the second you leave the room, they're just gonna make fun of you, and that's your first impression.
What went into you hiring interns?
I had like a notebook with 70 questions. And then on the next page, I had all the answers I wanted. At first. I wish I still had that notebook, because like that's
a classic piece.
It was so important, because if they got like half of them, I knew they'd be okay. But there are some kids that just got it, like Justin Childs, who was my assistant, and he got a plaque before I did as my assistant at DART. He ended up recording Rich Homie Kwan and mixing a bunch of stuff. He did Tuesday by McConan. He did all that stuff, that McConan EP. He drove up, which I normally immediately write somebody off for. He didn't tell me until after. He drove up from Florida that day to interview. Interviewed. The next day, drove back to Florida, got all his stuff, and drove back and was there. But that interview was like, I think within a month he was recording.
Wow.
He was up one night painting the outside of the studio at like 2 a.m.
Damn.
That'll make you invaluable.
Yeah, and if you're an intern, they always go to the kitchen to wash the dishes. They hang around reception, and they pull out their laptops in the lounge. None of which are going to get you anywhere.
I mean, the best thing to do is, and you got to wait, sometimes you got to wait, is to ask the engineer if you could sit with them. Sit. Just ask the engineer. Don't ask the artist. Don't ask anybody. They'll know whether it's okay with the artist. They'll know everything.
Or ask my assistant.
Yeah. And then if you can sit in the room, bring a notebook, bring a notepad, and then everything you see that you might have a question on, write down.
Write it down.
And then at the end of the session, ask like 2 of them. Don't ask all of them because then, everybody's tired.
Yeah.
Don't be a pain in the ass, but like ask them a few questions. And that's what I did. I mean, when I took over DARP, I was just the tech at first. And I sat in with Elliot Carter and Joe Fitz and a bunch of KY and a bunch of like great engineers that were defining the sound of Atlanta. And I was watching what they were doing and I was just like, whoa, that's crazy. I would definitely do that. And like, just all the mistakes that I would have made my first session, I didn't make.
This is something that most people who are sat to our left and who've been, successful over time and so on and so forth, they've all had the same answer. So now the pressure's on you.
I'll try to be different.
I think I'm just warming you up for batter's box.
It's his version of the intern question.
No, it's a little bit different, but I think that one of the things that go along with sustained success is sustained curiosity.
Yeah,
that you want to keep learning. You want to keep. Would you agree?
I would say, like I said it in one interview back in the day. I was like, comfort is the death of creativity. It's like you have to be uncomfortable. You have to be trying something new. Like I try not to use the same plugins all the time. I try not to do anything too often. Obviously I know how certain things work. I know the SSL EQ, I know the Q10, and I know the Fat Filter Q3 really well. I know how they affect the song. So if I need to get to a certain point and I need to save time, yeah, I'll go to those.
Right.
But if I got time, I'll try everything.
Right.
Because you never know.
Absolutely.
I got a question for you. You were the tech at DARP, right? But yet you say you're not technical.
I mean, there's only a vocal train in each room.
Just like his DJ. He just set the thumb drive and hit a space bar 10 seconds in front of where the drop.
I just go in and turn the computer on and turn it off.
So you were a tech light. You had like 100 less calories.
Yeah. I mean, when we went in and we set the rooms up, like that was a little bit more technical and like, a woofer would blow and I could like rewire that in like 10 minutes. Like one of them caught one on fire one day. And like, that's two wires,
Got
some screws. So it wasn't too crazy.
Genius.
Yeah, like, well, he fixed everything. Or like hot swapping the whole computer out with the other room.
Exactly. People are like, my God, Alex is, he's awesome.
Nothing would ever go wrong in the studio because there's one vocal change.
All right, batter's box. Let's tee that boy up and off you go.
All right. Reverb.
Necessary.
Snares.
Loud.
Ooh. Bass.
Louder.
Saturation.
Necessary.
808s.
Loudest.
Filters, EQ filters. High and low pass.
Less necessary.
Vocal compressor.
A lot.
Delays.
A lot.
Stereo bus.
It's a good one. Light compression.
The cheapest piece of gear you've used on a high-profile record.
Probably my Apollo.
Wow. You got some expensive tapes.
I mean, or my headphones. What, 150?
Yeah, that's a good one. Take that. Good job.
You did like a New Yorker. Cut to chase, get to it, things that work.
Yeah.
Don't have to be all over the map. Don't have to be really creative. Before we say goodbye, is as you look into the future, is artist development part of any interesting to you, finding artists, developing them?
Huge. One of the artists that I work with, Ness Knight, she's amazing talent. And like, I miss that. I mean, I was artist development with Doug. I was artist development with Travis a little bit. Like, I mean, they both had their vision, but I was there to help. Like, I was there in the beginning of it. Even 21 Savage, like, I feel like Metro and I worked really hard on Savage Mode to like create a new sound.
Yeah.
And that's the most fun part of this. Like, that's something I don't think I'll ever get back, to be honest, because there was no risk back in the day either. Now, if I mess up, it's like,
it's costly.
Right, yeah, because people have nobody had an expectation. Nobody knew who I was. Like, they don't care.
Right.
That was fun. There was no...
Yeah, and doing research on you, it seemed from reading it that would be a big part of, I mean, you were just at seminal moments with artists who were pushing the envelope, and they're going to be around people who push the envelope, generally, if they trust, and giving your give back sort of sense. I figured A&R and artist development had to be a big part of that.
Yeah, I would definitely say more artist development than A&R. It's just like sitting in the room being like, why don't we try this? Let's get this, let's do something weird, you know? Especially because at the beginning of someone's career, they're a little bit more receptive to someone else's input.
Yeah.
Whereas towards the end, if you're like, what if we got this choir and we did all this and we, you know, remade every single sound analog and, you know, they'd be like, why would we do that? This works.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
Absolutely.
And that's like something that you don't get in the beginning because nothing worked yet.
I think that, if anything, I hope this is correct, there's a testament to that is exemplified in your career about being organic and, you know, trusting yourself and trusting communication and creating trust with other clients, and the kind of humanity side of the music is important. And it's a gift to the music business that somebody who's like you has also been successful doing that. Because that tells other people like it's really possible. So good on you, mate, as they say. Absolutely. Dave, why don't you take us home?
Guys, I want to talk to you about something that might be a little hard to delineate, but I've told you a couple of times when I was first learning how to engineer, I read that Bob Clearmountain took 400 out of all his kick drums. It might have been 300. So for the next 10 mixes, I automatically took it out of my mixes and got fired for 3 of those mixes. They turned them down because they didn't like the kick drum sound. There's several cliches that are out there that used to drive me crazy when I was learning how to engineer. One is trust your ears, you know, like, how'd you do that? Well, man, just trust your ears. How'd you do that? Well, you just trust your ears. That drove me crazy. The other one that kind of drives me crazy is instead of giving you a fish, teach you how to fish. It turns out all those things are true. And part of the discussion today was about that. And so there's a way to learn. And I think learning how to learn comes first, and then learning comes after that. And there's so much great information on the internet, but there's a lot that isn't. You have to look at the source. If the source has had some success, there's a bigger likelihood, not 100%, but there's a bigger likelihood you might get some good information from them. But instead of trying to find that magic formula, that magic frequency, that magic whatever, it doesn't exist. The magic is either here or here. And it's your job to find it and get it to come through a pair of speakers. So.
Or just go to This Sounds Better or Pensado's place.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But I stifled my career trying to chase the magic bullet. And it turns out over the 15 years I was looking for it, it just kind of came naturally after all of that. And like Alex said, you know, if you want to be great and have greatness and have creativity, stand close to someone that has that creativity and borrow a little bit of it and make it your own. And the world doesn't need another me. It doesn't need another you. You've got to find a lane that's unique. And if you think about what we've talked about today with Alex, he found a unique spot. So think about those things, and we'll see you at the top.